Hi everyone, this is Celeste from Treating Trauma with Yoga, and this is take two for this video. I recorded this yesterday and realized today when I went to go watch it and check it all out that the volume was not working in this video, and that is a problem. So my apologies to those of you who did download or watch the one from yesterday, because I see that there were a bunch of people that did, and so they had a surprise that didn't make them happy, I'm sure, because they couldn't understand a word I was saying because there was no volume. So we're going to do that again, and hopefully with volume today. So the practice today is about making yoga accessible to you, whatever situation you may be in. And this practice is not about yoga like you see out in gyms or maybe on Instagram where people are doing great big back bends or super splits or poses that look really difficult, or even flows that seem beyond your ability to move through. This is about doing yoga that will help you to feel better, whether that's feeling better in your body, more at ease in your body, whether that's feeling better emotionally because it helps to down-regulate you. You'll notice that the concepts here are kind of consistent with everything that you hear about working with chronic pain and working with trauma, in that it's about you being comfortable, and if it doesn't work for you, then it's something that you don't need to be doing. Classes that I teach when I'm working with people in groups or one-on-one come from that perspective as well. It's not about the pose. It's about how you feel when you're in the pose, or in a version of the pose that works for you. So we're going to start with gentle warm-ups, and I recommend always warming up before your practice during the day. And I would like to think that I could encourage at least some people to do some practice of yoga on a daily basis. Right now, in our private group, we've got a challenge going. It's called the Shavasana challenge, which is Shavasana is the final resting pose in a yoga practice, and it is the resting pose is resting. That is what it's for, and it is said to be the most important, actually, in the whole practice. And I would agree with that, because it allows you to integrate everything that you've done and to relax into your body as it is in that moment. So we're going to start today with stretching. And even if all you take away from this practice is the initial gentle stretching, I would encourage you to do that, because I know when I get out of bed in the morning, sometimes my body isn't feeling great. And if I'm not going to my mat to stretch, I will be less comfortable throughout the rest of my day. So of course I do go to my mat and stretch, but that's kind of part of the life I live, and that is what I teach. So of course I do. But if you don't yet do that, I encourage you to give it a try and see if it makes a difference for you. So we're going to start by just kind of getting comfortable wherever it is that you are. And if you're sitting on the floor like me, you're fine to be here if this is comfortable for you. However, if this would not be comfortable for you, you can sit on a couch, you can sit on a stool, you can sit on a chair. You can make yourself comfortable in whatever way you can. And the other option is lying down. You can do some of this practice lying down as well. So we'll talk about some of those things that you can modify as we go along too. So as we're sitting up at this point in time, you could be sitting up in bed, or lying down in bed for that matter at this point. You're just going to bring your chin to your chest as you exhale. And as you inhale, look up at the ceiling. Exhale, let your chin come down to your chest. And inhale, Look up at the ceiling. And you can continue to move your head and your neck with your breath, exhaling down and inhaling up. And if it feels comfortable to you on your next inhale, you could open your mouth really wide after you take that full deep breath in. And as you exhale, you can close your mouth and look up. Open your mouth if that works for you. And exhale, release your chin to your chest. And one more time, just like that, looking up. And then bring your head to center. And take a full breath here at the center. And then exhale as you bring your ear towards your shoulder. Doesn't matter which ear, it can be either one. Inhale to center and exhale the other way. Following the breath from side to side. And one thing you may notice is that the body has a tendency to recruit muscles that are stronger when there are muscles that are weaker or are impacted in some way, to try to give you the result that it thinks that you want. So as we do this, if you notice that your head comes over and your shoulder comes up, you want to intentionally bring that shoulder down, let your head come back to center, and let your head come down and leave the shoulder in place. I only know a couple of people that can actually bring their ear down to their shoulder. Not very many. Most of us don't quite reach, and that's okay. The idea is that intention. So the neck is moving, you're getting a good stretch on one side, and you'll notice the sensation of compression perhaps on the other side. And that's perfectly fine. Just awareness of the sensations in the neck as you move from side to side. And as you're ready, come back up to center. So we're going to do something that I enjoy a lot. It's called facial massage, and I use my knuckles, and I may have done this in a video that you saw before already, so if so, you know exactly what I'm doing. So I'm running my knuckles from my cheekbones down the sides of my face to my jaw. And I like to open my mouth when I do that, because the area where the upper jaw and the lower jaw connect, for me, is a sensitive spot, and I carry a lot of stress there. So when I do this, rubbing like this, it really feels very, very juicy, very good. You can even carry that massage down onto your neck. And another place that people sometimes get tight is in what we call the scalenes, which are on the sides of your neck, here and here. And you'll notice them because they might be a little bit sensitive. I know mine are. And this feels really good to my neck too. So you can massage pretty much anywhere that feels good to you. And the way to know what feels good is to explore. And just do what you see me doing, or strike out on your own and notice what your body draws you to. Because there may be places that I'm not going that your body would like to be massaged. And if you pay attention and you just kind of follow, let your hands follow along into what they naturally sort of want to do, you may find things that you never expected. And when you're feeling like you got a little bit more motion and ease in your neck and your jaw, we're going to move to the shoulders. So lift your shoulders up this time and then roll them onto your back. We're kind of counteracting that tendency to roll the shoulders forward and hunch over computers like that. So we're just lifting them and rolling them back. Inhaling them up and exhale them down. Full deep breath. Let it go. And one more time. Lifting up and release. So we've worked on the jaw, we've worked on the shoulders. Those are two areas of the body that hold a lot of tension. The third one that tends to hold a lot of tension is our hips. We tend to place a lot of emotion into our hips and our shoulders and our jaw. And if you spend some time thinking about that, it might even make sense to you. It does to me. So you'll notice that I have a formula when I'm doing the next thing we're going to do, which is called Sufi circles in yoga. And it's literally, it's circling around from the hips. So the spine is tall and straight, and you're just moving in a circle. My practice is doing Sufi circles is to move toward the leg that is on the outside. And there's a reason for that, which is that the hip that is on the outside, this hip, for me, because this is the outside leg, this hip is more open than this one, obviously, because this one's in tight, the foot is in tight. And so what happens is that it tends to restrict movement in this hip a little bit. So I move toward the outside leg so that when I'm coming all the way around, when I'm here, when I'm folding in this direction, there's space so that I can go farther. You'll find this may not be an issue for you, but if you have tight hips, you will know that this does make a difference. So you can try, you can experiment. I really encourage you to do that. Explore different things and see whether it makes sense for you to do this. It certainly is easier in some sense to not have to change your legs, but I find it's actually easier physically and more effective if I do it this way. So this time I'm going to roll the other way. I've switched my legs. I'm now moving to my outside leg. And a couple more times all the way around. And then come on back to center. And then as you find center, settle yourself in that position and lift your arms up over your head. And then exhale, bring your hands down to your mat. And inhale up, looking up, exhale down. Inhale up. And this time just bring one hand down, and it doesn't matter which. It can be either one, and just tip over to the side as far over as you go. Now that may be with a straight arm here. Maybe your arm can come out to the side more. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you want to be closer in. Maybe your elbow bends. Maybe you're very bendy. I tend to be. So for me, at least on this is my right side. This is, and it's my left side that's doing the stretching here. This is comfortable. This is a good stretch for me. And my elbow is completely down, and it's and this hip is open, and so it makes it easier for me to go over to this side. And if you experiment with this, if you explore it and change, so you can change it up and just see what's true for you. If you've got the outside leg on the side that you're bending toward, try doing it the other way and bringing that leg in, and then do it. And notice the difference in your flexibility here. I cannot quite get my elbow down to the ground on this side when I do that. But that's something for you to explore for yourself and notice, because I can pretend, right? I could. I'm not, but I could pretend to do that. Um, but you can explore for yourself and validate that for you. And it may not be true for everybody, but for me, I find that it is. And come back to center when you're ready to, and then we'll go to the other side. Switching outside legs again. The other thing that I'll say is that sometimes one side is just not as flexible as the other at all. And in my case, this is true. So the problem is not on the right side that's stretching here. The problem is on the left side that's compressing. And I can feel the restriction there. And you'll note, you may be able to see that my left elbow is not quite down to the floor on this side. And that's okay. Sometimes it goes down all the way, sometimes it doesn't. And I just accept it where it is. I know that sometimes if I stay with it in where it is, where it works, which is not quite down to the floor, sometimes it will release and stretch out a little bit more. And not quite. Not today. That's okay. So it's just noticing what's true for you in any given moment and honoring that. And when you're ready, coming back up to center. And now bring your hands onto your knees. We're going to do something called cat-cow. And cat-cow is really about a spinal stretch. Often cat-cow is done on hands and knees, but it can also be done seated. And if you have sensitive knees, this might be an alternative for you. You can do cat-cow seated by rounding and arching your spine from a seated position. Rounding and looking down, inhaling and looking up, arching the back up, rounding down. And I'll show you cat-cow now for when you're on your hands and knees. I have a pillow that I'm bringing over. My knees are not particularly sensitive, but this is another alternative for people with sensitive knees, is to bring your knees onto something like a pillow or a rolled blanket or a folded blanket, okay, so that you can have something under your knees to help cushion them. I can do that, but I don't need it, so I'll let go of it, but you can. So do what works for you. When you're here, press down through the palms of your hands, and you want to have your hands, your palms, right about in line with underneath your shoulders, and spread your fingers apart. So you're really connecting to the mat. And then roll your shoulders back, lift your belly up. So you're in what's called tabletop position here. And we think about a table, right, in your living room, that my back is, in theory, the top of the table. And so rounding the back, I'm looking down at my knees. And as I inhale, I'm arching the back and looking up at the ceiling, moving back and forth. And cat-cow this way. So the cow is arching and the cat is rounding. And then another practice that you can do in this position, and I like to do it in this position, but there's alternatives here too, is bring your hands out a little farther, a little wider. And for me, I actually end up bringing a couple of fingers off the mat because I have a bicep tendon issue on my right shoulder, and it gets cranky if there's too much weight on that arm. So by putting my arms wider apart, I've got a better place of balance than I do if my hand is inside on the mat. So I'm moving back and forth. I'm just moving my hips from side to side. They're not going forward and back. They're just going from side to side. And we're working on releasing the hip flexors here. And it feels really good, especially if you haven't ever done this before. This can be just heavenly. Just kind of noticing what's happening in the hips as you move back and forth. It can also be somewhat intense. You may have one side or the other that's feeling really intense. And if you want to, you can stay on that side and even work into it by moving, like staying on the side but moving back and forth on that side, and see if you can work some of the tension out of that hip. If your knees are not happy there, even with a pillow underneath them, you have another choice, which is used in yoga a lot also, and I'm going to have to move this. There we go. My microphone battery pack. Bring your knees up to your chest and then roll to one side and back to center and over to the other side. So you can do it like this too. I don't know that I get quite as much of a stretch from it this way. Maybe. But you get to decide which way you prefer. And everybody's body is different. So just because it doesn't do as much for me doesn't mean it won't do more for you. So just explore that and see what works best. And when you're ready, coming back up to center in the best way for you. Coming back onto your hands and knees once again. We're going to move into child's pose. And just let yourself find this position with either your arms forward or your arms back. Your knees can be together and your chest and your belly lying against your legs, or you can have your knees apart and bring your chest and your belly in between. Now, I like having my arms behind me, so I also like having my legs spread slightly, my knees spread slightly so that my body fits in the middle. And part of that is because I'm pretty flexible here, so this is comfortable for me. Not everybody is comfortable here. You need to find what is comfortable for your body. And then when you're ready, coming back to center, pressing your hands down on the mat, tuck in your toes behind you. Bring your hands by your knees and press up onto your feet, onto the balls of your feet, and then press your heels down. And you're coming into a forward fold with your belly on your thighs and your knees are bent. You can see, I think, with my pants that my knees are bent. It's hard to see in these pants, but it's the truth. My knees are bent. So the idea of bringing your belly to your thighs is that it's not about a hamstring stretch. So we're not doing this, right, with straight legs and bringing our hands to the floor. We're bending our knees and letting our bellies come down to the thighs. The reason why, there's a couple reasons why, but the best reason why for me is that it's the connection of your belly to your thighs tells your body that you're safe. It's the same reaction that your body has in child's pose. It's kind of a, I can relax here. You'll notice there's a stretch in your spine, in your low back. But having your belly on your thighs actually stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the portion of your nervous system that helps you to relax and down-regulate. So you want to be able to do that. And this is one way to do it. And if you think about it, just like child's pose, it's a position that you were in when you were a baby in the womb. And so no wonder that the sensation for you is of safety. So just Let yourself be in that place. Let your head and your neck relax forward. And you can nod your head yes or shake your head no. And when it feels comfortable to you, just bring your hands onto your elbows. And you could, if it feels right, you could begin to just straighten one knee, bending the other. Straightening one knee and bending the other knee. And as you bend the other knee, if you want to, you can also lift that heel, that same side heel, as the knee that's bending. And then switch. So this in yoga is frequently called bicycling out your legs. And a lot of times people do this in downward dog. But I have to tell you, although I do downward dog, it can be challenging for people with shoulder issues. It can also be challenging for trauma survivors in general. It's a difficult position to be in. And when I'm doing it like this, it allows the focus to be on my legs, which is really where I want it. I don't need to think about, oh, my shoulders, or oh, my hands are not in the right place, or my body weight is too far forward. I just want to be here and notice the sensation of stretch and explore that sensation, being present in my body with the stretch, feeling what's happening now in my body. I like to feel my legs stretching. It feels good. Anyway, so come back to center when you're ready. We're going to bend the knees and reach the arms out to the sides. I call this, because I live by the beach, seagull pose. And come all the way up, reaching your arms toward the ceiling. And exhale your hands down to your heart. Take a full deep breath in. And let that breath go. Inhale, reach the arms up. Maybe even look up. Exhale your hands to your heart. Inhale, reach up. Maybe even look back just a little. And exhale your hands back to your heart. One more time, just like that. Inhaling and exhaling. This time, lift all the way up. And as you're ready, dive forward. So you're coming down, you can bend your knees or not. It's your choice. Bring your head down, your hands beside your feet. Inhale and bring your hands onto your shins. This is called flat back because it's creating a flat back. And exhale, bring your hands back down to the mat. Inhale, reach out and come all the way up. And hands to your heart. Inhale, reach up. Noticing the sensations of breath and movement. Exhale, dive forward. Legs bent or straight. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Reach out and up. Maybe even a little back if that feels good. And exhale your hands to your heart. And one more time just like that. Reaching up. Exhale, dive forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach out. Come all the way up. And hands come to your heart. And I'm going to come up toward the front of my mat. And from here, I'm going to take my left foot. You can do this with whichever foot, whichever side you feel best on. You can do your left foot back or your right. It doesn't matter. But in this case, I'm taking my left just so that you know what I'm doing in space. My right leg is forward. My right leg is bent. My left leg is straight. Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to start with my hands at my heart, with this front leg bent and the back leg straight. My hands are at my heart, and my gaze is steady and forward. I'm looking at a point in space to hold my gaze and hold my attention here. This is the beginning, the foundation of a pose that's called Warrior One. And Warrior One is a pose that is considered to be quite active by most people, and it is. But it's important to start at the foundation of any pose. So when you come into Warrior One, notice your feet and your toes. You want a solid and firm foundation, both feet. You want your toes holding onto the mat. You want the heels and the balls of your feet rooting down. You want engagement in your legs. It's an interesting thing, but we can have no energy. We can be in this pose and have no energy in our legs. I am right now without, basic standard stuff, but I'd fall over right now if somebody bumped against me. So I'm engaging so that I'm stable. You are also doing isometrics when you do that, by the way. So you're engaging the muscles in your legs, rooting down through your feet. Engage your belly. Let your shoulders gently come onto your back. And you can leave your hands at your heart. You can bring your hands onto your hips. You could bring your hands and your arms into the pose I call cactus, right? Cactus arms. Or you could reach the arms up. This is the traditional Warrior One stance with your arms up. I don't always subscribe to tradition. You want to be able to feel stable and strong in whatever you're doing that you're going to hold for any length of time. So when you do this, you want to be okay here. And if you're not okay here holding your arms up, find another place to put them. Find what works for you. Straighten your front knee, and as you do, bring your hands behind your back, clasping them together. And you're just going to fold forward. And as you come halfway over, find that place. If your hands come off your back, you're welcome to let them come up. If they don't, that's okay too. And fold over that leg as far over as it's comfortable for you to go. You can let your arms reach up as far as they're comfortable going as well. And this is where this engagement in your legs and your feet really pays off, because this is a balance challenge too. And if you're not rooted and grounded, it's easy to lose your balance. You don't want to do that. Bend that front knee as you start to come back up to center. Releasing your hands when you're ready. Maybe reaching them up together, and step forward, bringing your hands to your heart. Let your arms relax by your sides. And we're in a pose now, believe it or not. This is called mountain pose. Mountain pose is about feeling that sensation of grounding that we were talking about just a moment ago in Warrior One. So you want to feel your feet against the mat. You want to be able to lift your toes. Like this. And either place your toes right back down and root down through those toes and the balls of your feet and your heels. Or if it's available to you, you could explore just one toe at a time coming down to the mat. So as you feel those toes grounded down onto your mat, lift your shoulders up and bring them back. Find that steady gaze, the focal point forward. Engaging the muscles through your feet and your legs and your belly and your shoulders. Your chin is parallel to the ground below you. You're not looking down, you're not looking up. You're looking straight ahead with focus and intention. Remembering to breathe out and breathe in. you're ready, we're going to do that same thing on the other side. So this time I'm bringing my right leg back. For you, you just want to make sure it's the one that you didn't bring back before. Your hips are kind of forward, so you'll notice that there's a tendency to kind of want to open the hip to the side. In Warrior One, you're facing the front, so you want your hips facing front too. So let your feet be wider apart, and I don't mean lengthwise, I mean width of your mat wise. So you can let one foot come all the way out to the edge of your mat if that's helpful. What you want to be able to do is get your hips aligned so that you have closed hips facing forward, hip bones facing in that direction. So wherever that is that it works for you is where you want to be. It can be wider or it can be narrower, but I do not encourage doing what I see sometimes in yoga practices and studios, which is kind of like this that I'm doing right now, which is one foot in line with the other. It's very hard to balance like this and keep your hips forward. It's also very uncomfortable. So when you find the position that works for you and your feet are rooted and grounded, you can then explore the rest of your body, noticing the engagement in your legs, noticing the engagement in your belly, in your shoulders, arms wherever you want them to be. Maybe you want to explore a different position now. Maybe you want to try arms out in cactus instead of arms up in the air, or arms on your hips instead. We're coming into the same thing that we did before. It doesn't matter where your arms are right now, particularly, other than as the practice applies to what works for you. And as you're ready, straighten your front knee. Bring your hands together behind you. You're going to clasp your hands again, but clasp them the opposite way. So whichever thumb is naturally on top, you did that already, put the other thumb on top. And you're going to fold forward. I know that feels really strange. We have an automatic habit, usually, of picking one side predominant that goes on top. And so doing it the other way always feels just a little weird, but it's an interesting practice to get used to doing something different. And again, you can bring your arms up as far as they go. You can explore that too and notice if there's a difference. If one thumb is on top or the opposite thumb is on top, which way do you have more mobility in your shoulders? Is there a difference? And as you're ready, inhale, engage the belly as you're coming up. Let your belly and your thighs help press you up into a standing position, releasing your hands. Let them come by your sides. Step forward. Inhale your arms up. And exhale, release your arms down by your sides. Finding mountain pose here once again. Rooting down through your feet. Engaging the muscles in your legs. Shoulders back. Belly engaged. Steady gaze. Find your breath. And notice as you're standing here, if you're feeling your heart beating a little faster. If you're aware of the breath moving a little faster. Noticing it calming down and slowing down as you stand a little longer. And another breath here. And as you're ready, releasing that. We're coming into a position with the legs a little farther apart than they were. We're coming down into a squat. And maybe that squat is here. And that's perfect. If that's where what it is for you, that's fine. You get to decide where it is for you. You get to come down onto the mat wherever it is that your body is most comfortable. And when you're down on your mat, close to the ground, place your hands on the ground. Bring your knees down. Good. And sit on your mat with your feet in front of you, your knees bent. So we're going to do a seated forward fold next. If I can get an eyelash out of my eye. I like to do my seated forward folds a little different than a lot of people. And I use my legs as my propulsion for this, as opposed to having my legs be out here and then trying to propel my back to move forward. If I'm here, my belly is touching my thighs. I'm feeling safe and secure. And then I walk my feet forward as far as it is that I go. Wherever that is perfect. And that may be my knees bent a little bit here. Maybe that's where I find I can still have a flat, straight back. Maybe not. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's here. For me it is, but that may not be so for you. One of the things that I am aware of that's true for me is I am somewhat hyperflexible. Some places way more so than others. And that too can be a problem. In that people who are hyperflexible have a hard time with finding a good stretch, because it's so much more difficult to actually stretch something that's already elongated, right? And also we have a tendency to have problems with ligaments and tendons that get overstretched. And so it's important to be aware of what's happening in your body, especially around things like that. I have an over elongated bicep tendon on the right side, and I am now very aware of that, and I am conscious of not doing things that will cause me trouble later. I didn't used to be so conscious of that. Age helps. Anyway, when you're ready, you can then walk your hands back up so that you're sitting in what's called stick pose, right? And so stick pose looks a lot easier than in fact it is. If you're looking, you may notice that my ankles are flexed, my legs are engaged, my belly is engaged. My palms are on the mat and my arms are straight. I'm pressing down into the mat with my palms. My head is centered and forward, and I am holding that steady gaze once again in this space. So everything is engaged in stick pose. The whole body is working. When you're ready to come out of stick, go ahead and bend your knees. Scoot a little bit forward and lie down on your mat. Bring your knees up to your chest. And you can start by rolling your knees forward and back. So my fingers are on the top of my knees and I'm rolling over my low spine. My feet are not quite touching the floor, but they're headed in the direction of the floor. Rolling over the spine feels really good. It's like a gentle massage. And you can also explore moving side to side or even around in circles. And my body right now really likes circles, so I'm going that way. You can do it side to side or circles, your choice. All the way around and back to center, and all the way around and back to center. Exploring the sensations in your legs as you do this, in your hips. Maybe reversing your direction when that feels good. There's no one right way. You don't have to count it. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly even. Just notice what feels good to you and pay attention to that. Let that be your guidepost. And when you feel ready, you can come back to center. Bring your arms out to the sides. And let your knees roll over to one side. You can look toward the opposite fingertips, keeping your shoulders as close to the floor as they'll go. And then coming back to center and rolling over the other way. Looking over these opposite fingertips. And if you feel like you want to help your top leg come down, get your hip come down just a little farther, I wouldn't recommend really pressing into it, but you can rest your hand on the top of your knee. If that gives you just that little bit more stretch, it might feel really good. And then back to center as you're ready. Bring your feet down to the mat. We're coming into what is that lovely final resting pose I was talking about at the beginning of the practice, Shavasana. Shavasana is about rest. And you can do Shavasana in whatever way works for you. You can stretch your legs out on your mat. And if you are stretching your legs out on your mat, I recommend that you pay attention to where your feet are, because if you notice, if you're looking at my legs right now, I look like I'm relaxed, right? Except what's happening with my feet? And I could even do it like really close. My legs are straight out in front of me. My ankles are flexed. If my ankles are flexed, my legs are engaged. What we want to do is relax here. So let your legs relax. Let your feet open one to one side and the other. Allow the hips to release, because that's really what's happening, right? When your legs are tight, your hips are not releasing. Let your hips release. And settle into this position. Now, if you have problems with your low back, if there's issues there and lying flat on the ground is not comfortable for you, you have a couple of options. You can take something like this, like a bolster, or like a big pillow or a couch bolster, and you can put it under your knees. Couch bolsters work remarkably well, by the way. I like that a lot. So bolster under your knees, or if you don't have anything handy that will work for you really well, you could also just bring your knees together. Bend them and bring the knees together. Take the feet out to the sides and just relax like this, because it actually is very relaxing. Your knees support each other, so your legs feel supported. You don't actually have to do any work with any of the muscles. They balance against each other, and you can let yourself rest here in this position. Breathing out and breathing in. Noticing the sensations in your body. Allowing the body to breathe itself as you relax into your inhale and exhale. No effort, no work. Just be right here. Feeling the body at rest. You may notice your breath begin to slow. The beat of your heart begin to slow and even out. Feel yourself resting on the support of the floor. And can you notice the gentle press of gravity holding you here, keeping you close, holding you against the earth? And when you're ready, you might begin to deepen your breath just a little. Feeling the breath moving in and out. No need to really do much here other than bring yourself back to center. Back into the body. Awareness of breath. Awareness of your body resting on the floor. And if it feels comfortable, you might turn your head to one side, bringing it back to center, then turning it the other way. Looking over one shoulder, back to center, and over the other side. As many times as feels right to you. Bring your head back to center when you're ready. Maybe stretch out your arms behind you. Stretch out your legs on the mat, reaching from your toes to your fingers. And then maybe roll up into a low ball. When it feels right, you can roll over to one side, maybe using your arm as support for your head. And on an inhale, when it's comfortable, come up into a seated position on your mat once again. So when you come up to seated, bring your arms together and across, your palms crossing your heart. Your left hand is on the bottom and your right hand is on top. This is a mudra in yoga, a hand position. Mudras have power over energy channels in our bodies. This particular mudra is called Eagle or Garuda mudra. With your hands over your heart, notice that sensation as you gently press the palms of your hands down against your chest. Feel that connection, the awareness. Feel the yes in your soul. And then on an inhale, bring your hands together at your forehead for clear thoughts, to your lips for a clear voice, and to your heart for clear intentions. Namaste. So in yoga, namaste means the light in me sees the light in you. And this little guy over here in the corner, you saw him move, so you know he's not a stuffed animal. That's my dog Sam, and he's a good boy. I hope you enjoyed this class today, and I hope you found it helpful. You will find my videos on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and also on my website, Treating Trauma with Yoga. If you have any questions about this practice or any of the practices that I teach, please drop me a line and let me know. I'd be happy to answer them or go more in depth with you on a one-on-one basis to help you figure out things that, for whatever reason, you may have questions about. But if you like the videos, if you found this helpful, please leave a comment and like the video below. You could subscribe to the channel on YouTube. That would be awesome. If you're looking for a cool place to hang out and feel safe and comfortable, the private Facebook group Treating Trauma with Yoga is marvelous, and the group of people we have there is very special. We are hosting events there periodically. I do interviews there, and we have a current challenge I think I told you about, the Shavasana challenge, and that's fun too. So please join us wherever you like, social media wise, and I'll see you back here next week. Thank you for joining me.